go to dinner or pick Ruth up, but I can bring her home. So I asked Barry, and Barry said, fine, you pick her up, because I'm taking Nathaniel's sight singing class.
It's experienced by the
It's
Mahal.
a 6-week thing.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock. My name is Erol Delos Santos, your student minister, and I'm held in care by our ministry team, Reverend Dr. Natalie M. Fenimore, our lead minister and minister of lifespan religious education, Reverend Jay Brooks, our developmental minister, and Reverend David Carl Olson, our minister of congregational life. On behalf of our ministry team, our staff, our lay leaders, and the full breadth of our worship team, you are welcome here. Whether you're a member, a friend, or a guest, you are welcome here. Whether you're with us in the pews or watching us from afar, you are welcome here. The prelude that we just saw this morning was a demonstration of an instrument called the kulingtan. And you'll see other instruments demonstrated throughout the service, and the next will be called the kubing, and the last is called the saloli. And these are indigenous musical instruments attributed to the Taboli tribe of the Philippines. Each instrument is also attributed to a story, and they were chosen for today's service to frame our time together with an understanding of our worship theme this month, which is love, and all of its beauty, fullness, and complexities. Today, we will bring in words and prayers and songs from Filipino folk traditions as a way to acknowledge and invite everyone, especially those with historically marginalized identities, to this beautiful faith tradition. Let's begin our time today with opening words from the Reverend Dr. Anita Farber Robertson. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. And I'll light the words now with our chalice lighting words. We light this chalice, the flame of our heritage. May it ignite hope in our lives, in our community, and in the world. And before we begin with our opening hymn, I just want to say a few words about it. And I would invite you to feel the rhythm and take in the time to appreciate the lyrics. The rhythm is heavily influenced by Filipino folk music, and the words of the hymn are the words of Bishop Toribio Quimada, who introduced the Universalist, now the Unitarian Universalist Church, to the Philippines. Please rise in body and spirit as you are able with a mask to sing hymn number 182 in your grave hymnals, Oh, the Beauty in the Life. please join us as we say the words of affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is its sacrament. Its service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve human need. This do we affirm and covenant with each other. Now join us for our song of affirmation. Please have a seat. Every Sunday, we take a special collection to support nonprofit groups that serve human need. This week's offering will provide support to two organizations. The Long Island Council of Churches Food Pantry, located in Freeport, is open to anyone in need. In 2022, they served an average of 1,500 families monthly. The pantry is funded in part by Nassau County, but depends heavily on the donations of local churches, synagogues, and mosques. The Council of Churches raises money to fund 2 full-time positions to staff the pantry, and it recruits volunteers to help with the smooth operation of the project. During the worst of the pandemic, they remained open, taking orders from their guests and leaving bags of groceries at the pantry door for pickup. During the winter months, the pantry staff also administers funds from the county's emergency food and shelter program to help families pay for heating. You can visit our website, uucsr.org/give, send a text message to that phone number up on the screen. You can send a PayPal donation through donate@uucsr.org. Or if you are here today, we have a donation box right outside the door. Thank you. And now we're going to move into a video of the traditional Filipino music. Is played by the instrument, the kubing. The gubing is a variation on the jaw harp, and the Taboli people used it to call the sun back from an eclipse. And there are stories attributed to that instrument. So now let's prepare our hearts and our minds for a pastoral meditation. Let's take a moment to breathe in together and out. Spirit of life, Spirit of the living waters, be with us. Form in us pools of gratitude, gratitude for the life in our lungs and the blood in our veins. Spirit of the calm sea, know that many of us are suffering from the grief of loss, from the pain of violence, the violence from police brutality, the violence of mass shootings, from the sharpness of sudden change, and those among us who suffer under the weight of oppression. May we find stillness and peace. Spirit of the restoring rivers, the underground springs, grow within us the gentle blossom of love, so that we may find the strength to stand with our siblings in need, so that we may create a safe space for those who are in danger, so that we may reach out to those around us with care. Spirit of community, hold us in kindness and compassion, so that we may find the grace to forgive and the humility to seek forgiveness. Spirit of the soft rain, may the blessings of our life revive us and renew us. May every baby born, every accomplishment, every celebration, birthday and anniversary, every moment of happiness be heard and rejoiced. And now please receive this blessing. Naway ang lakas ng hangin at ang liwanag ng araw, sa lambot ng ulan at ang misteryo ng buwan, abutin ka at punuin ka. Naway kagandahan ng sandaling ito at magpapasaya sa iyo at kaligayahan ay umangat sa iyo. Naway matupad ka kahanga-hanga at palibutan ka ng pag-ibig. Naway maging matatag ang iyong hakba at maging malakas ang iyong braso. Naway maging payapa ang iyong puso at maging totoo ang iyong salita. Naway matuto kang mabuhay. Naway magsikap kang matuto. Naway matuto kang mabuhay. Naway mabuhay ka sa pag-ibig. At naway magmahal ka palagi. May the strength of the wind and the light of the sun, the softness of the rain and the mystery of the moon reach you and fill you. May the beauty of this moment delight you and happiness uplift you. May the wonder fulfill you and love surround you. May your step be steady. May your arms be strong. May your heart be peaceful and your word be true. May you seek to learn. May you learn to live. May you live to love. And may you love always. Amen and blessed be. just want to express a moment of gratitude to the choir and our musicians and Stephen Michael Smith that I'm really, it's just warming my heart to hear all this music. And thank you. So before we move on to the next part of the service, which is a reflection from Carl Lorenz Cervantes, just want to give a brief introduction. Carl Lorenz Cervantes is a researcher whose essays on psychology, spirituality, and the Philippine culture have been published in books, online magazines, and academic journals. His research project, Siko Diwa, explores the grit and magic of indigenous spirituality as it is experienced by the modern Filipino.
Hello, mga mahal kong kapatid. My name is Carl Lorenz Cervantes. It's good to be in your digital presence here today. I'm a researcher with a particular interest in the spiritual aspects of Filipino psychology. Now, as much as my work touches on the indigenous, you will find that these ideas have many qualities that are universal to the human experience. So today we will be looking at the mystical aspects of some baybayin symbols. Now, baybayin is the writing script of our pre-colonial ancestors. Each symbol is a syllable. Every word is a combination of these syllables. In Filipino folk Christianity, we take literally the statement that God is the Word and the Word is God. So everything that exists in creation has a name, so if you know the right words, you can participate in the creativity of the universe. Now with that in mind, let us look at God. Bathala is our representation of the divine. Bathala was the supreme deity of the pre-colonial Tagalogs. It is a collection, it is a representative of all these expressions of being human. Now, it is believed that our habit of saying bahala na when we are faced with an obstacle is a reflection of our trust in the divine. For example, if you're faced with something that you don't want to deal with, you say, bahala na. So we let go and we let bathala, that is God, handle it. Let God handle it. Bahala na. The word bahala, now, it has 3 syllables. Ba, ha, and la. In Baybayin, the ancient script of our ancestors, ba is symbolized by what looks like breasts in the form of an upside-down heart. Ba is also the first syllable of the word babae, which means woman. Ha is represented by a wavy line, which makes sense when you see that ha is the first syllable of the word hangin, which means wind. In the final syllable, la, it is represented by a hanging line, like a phallus, right there. It is the first syllable of the word lalaki, which means man. Thus, it can be said that Bathala is a representation of humanity in all its forms. Now, I recognize that there may already be some thoughts about this interpretation, but the truth is that I was not the first to point out the gendered appearance of Ba and La. I'm only echoing Bing Veloso, who created Baybayin oracle cards in the early 2000s, and Teresita Obusan, who pioneered an indigenous research methodology that uses Baybayin symbols as points for reflection. I recognize, however, the need to update our perspective on the matter, so here are a few things to consider. First, whether the physical attributes symbolized in Baybayin accurately represent what it means to be a man or a woman. Second is whether the representation of the word bahala implies a gender binary. Third is whether our culture, as represented in our language, is in fact gendered. Good morning, by the way. I'm recording this at 7 a.m. Anyway, the third point has the most straightforward answer. The question of whether our language is gendered. So I will start with that. Language, first of all, implies culture. When the pioneers of Psikologiyang Pilipino or Philippine psychology started looking for indigenous concepts, they looked at the words we use. For the longest time, foreign scholars simply translated terms, recklessly applying Western concepts to the Filipino psyche. So Their interpretations of our cultural values, such as hiya or kapwa, are corrupted by their individualist ideals. Hiya was interpreted as shame, and kapwa was interpreted as other people. These do not accurately reflect our experience of these concepts. Hiya is more closely related to acting appropriately in a social setting, while kapwa is one's connectedness with other people through a common humanity. So, in order for the Filipino to understand their psyche, they must come from their own experience. We must understand Philippine culture through the Filipino experience. And we can understand the Filipino psyche by studying the implications of our language. So going back to the topic at hand, our language does not seem to have, again, it does not seem to have gendered words. So when we refer to people, we use the gender inclusive term siya. Of course, when I say our language, I am referring to Tagalog specifically. There are almost 200 languages across the archipelago, and it would be unfair to say that the urban Tagalog experience is the Filipino experience. Nevertheless, that is the context that I am speaking from. And I cannot pretend to fully know any other context. Though my mother is from Visayas, my father is from Mindanao, and I was raised across the country. I know how to speak a little bit of Hiligaynon, but not enough to actually say that, not as much as I know Tagalog. But, whatever I say here, remember to take only what resonates, as the tarot readers say. Take only what resonates with your lived experience and question the things that don't make sense. These are keys to unlocking the mystery of your own context as an individual in the world. Now, there is the question of whether the word bahala implies a gendered binary. To answer clearly, it does not. This is connected also to the question of whether the physical symbols for ba and la accurately reflect the human experience. One might correctly point out that not all men have penises, and not all women have breasts. The sex that one is assigned at birth does not define a person. This is simply the result of various biological processes that may have gone in so many different ways. We may have been assigned a sex at birth, but as a society, we have also assigned roles and meanings to those sexes. Throughout history, these roles have shifted depending on what we need from people. What does it mean, therefore, to be a man or a woman? Now, there are, of course, many ways through which we understand gender. Some are sure that there are only two genders, although one can be more man or more woman, regardless of where one is on the spectrum. This perspective implies that there is an ideal, or the most manly man, or the most womanly woman. Although these words make it easy to refer to individuals, we must recognize that there is also some fluidity to them. Man and woman are defined by culture and time. So some people, despite them being assigned a certain sex at birth, may resonate more with how their culture defines a certain gender. They may therefore identify as this or that gender. You see, the multitude of genders only reflects the fact that there are many ways of being human. Diba? So our desire to understand the world, it has inspired us to create various categories which we use to identify and control individuals. It is much easier to generalize people because then we would not have to use too much mental energy to try and understand each and every person we meet. We identify people based on the color of their skin, their place of birth, or even with a map of the stars at the time of their birth. So it's easy to talk about all Geminis being this and that, or all Filipinos being this and that. But the truth is that we are all intersections of so many different contexts, and each individual is unique. It is impossible for two people to be alike, to be exactly alike at least. Even twins have different personal histories, down to the smallest choices that they make, or the preferences that they might have. That being said, there are, of course, patterns that emerge across various identities, though we must still be careful not to make generalizations. We must focus instead of particular narratives, particularist, as one scholar said, particularist narratives. So when I say man, I'm not just referring to people with penises. I am referring to that vague pattern that emerges when we consider all possibilities of being a man. It is the same when I say woman. In the context, therefore, of the word bahala, we are not looking at it strictly as penis and breast. We consider the multitudes of being human, of all identities. We must remember the ha that connects ba and la, which is the spirit that animates us all. Ha is hangin, and spirit is known as hininga, or breath, the breath of life. So when hangin is blocked in the body, we experience tension in our muscles. We call this lamig, which is coldness or bad air. Usually we go to a manghihilot, who is someone who tries to remove the lamig from your body through physical massage. And when I was younger, my mother would always tell me not to have my back at an open window, towards an open window, especially when it's raining, otherwise I might get sick. And see, that is an interesting way of understanding what hangin means. So we must let hangin flow properly. We must let the breath, the wind of the air, the breath of God, the breath of life, we must let it flow properly. Now, interestingly, if you connect two ha symbols, you get ka. You see? Two ha symbols, you get ka. This is ka. It is the prefix to many relational words. Ka looks like two wavy lines on top of the other, one on top of the other, connected by a vertical line. We see it in the words kapatid, sibling, ka-ibigan, friend, and ka-sama, companion. Ka means sharing. Ibigan means act of loving. So, ka-ibigan, which means friend, refers to sharing in the act of loving. Ka is when your soul is connected to another, one spirit connected to another. So, we see the connection and implication of all these symbols. Ba and la being the representation of the variations of being human. Ha being the symbol that represents fluidity and the spirit. And ka, which represents a soul connection. Bathala, or God, therefore, represents the fullness of humanity. Our connection with other people is the connection of souls. Thank you for listening. You can reach me on Instagram at Siko Diwa. Siko Diwa. Please consider supporting my work by getting a copy of my online resources, which can be accessed through the link in my bio. Again, Siko Diwa. You can also message me on Instagram if you have any thoughts, questions, insights. Thank you again, and I hope to be in your digital presence again soon. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, I will see you eventually when spirit becomes one with nature.
Thank you so much, Carlo and Cervantes. Hopefully he's watching us now. It's almost midnight in the Philippines, and I know there are a few people tuning in. So this is another reflection, and it's a reflection about love. It's a reflection about love. It's really important that we know that it's a reflection about love. When I made the commitment to reach into my own past and form a relationship with my Indigenous ancestors, I remember becoming very intimidated by the amount of work I had to do. And I remember anticipating how hard I would need to work to learn more about the different tribal regions of the Philippines, the people, their individual cultures, their dialects. I was surprised to learn that I didn't have to look too far in order to form that connection. Claire Prentice released a book called The Lost Tribe of Coney Island, and it's set at the end of the Philippine-American War in the early 1900s. 1,300 Indigenous Filipinos were forced to live in an exhibit in St. Louis called the St. Louis Exposition. William Howard Taft used this opportunity to reinforce the message that Filipinos were unable to govern themselves, and sought to justify the annexation of the Philippines by the United States. The man who took responsibility for the Filipinos on display is a man named Truman Hunt. When the exhibition finally closed, Hunt went back to the Philippines and recruited 51 indigenous Igorots to travel with him abroad and promised them fair compensation, humane treatment, and a new life. So he brought them to New York City, in Coney Island, at an amusement park called Luna Park. Here, the Igorots performed fake marriages, fed dog meat on a daily basis, and became ill from it as a result, and were forced to create handicrafts and sell them for tips. It's also worth mentioning that they wore traditional clothing, often in the backdrop of changing seasons. The clothes they wore were very revealing and added to the novelty and the titillating spectacle of the show. Hunt eventually turned back on his promise and began to keep more and more of the profit generated by the show. And towards the end, the Igorot were sold into servitude to people across the nation against their will. The modern-day equivalent of this practice rests in the experiences of overseas foreign workers, or OFWs for short. The Filipino media is saturated with stories of OFWs who are similarly exploited, salaries withheld, and passports taken away from them by the people they work for. All of them immigrants to new countries, often leaving behind their families, friends, and all that they know for the promise of a brighter future, the gamble of success, and the risk of exploitation. It still exists. It still exists now, even more than 100 years later. And I mention these stories because they follow a common thread. Whether they're the Igorots from Coney Island or modern-day OFWs, one of the driving forces to take this leap of faith were their motivations. They wanted an opportunity to send money back, provisions back to the Philippines, to their friends, to their family, so that they too had an opportunity to experience a better life, a better education for their children, and a way out of certain poverty. This is obviously not the case for everyone, especially when it comes to the upper middle and elite class of the Philippines. But those who make the dire choices like these, they often find themselves at difficult crossroads. Somehow the risk is always balanced out, but by the love they have for both their own well-being and the well-being of their loved ones. Love can be easy and magical, but love also drives us to tough decisions. Even when decisions are rooted in love, sometimes the future will still seem uncertain. Love requires many partners: courage, patience, foresight, communication, wisdom, hope, and many, many more. All of these elements shape and expand the ways we love and how love can be expressed in this world. People may find love in sticky, sweet candies and floral arrangements. But for me, I choose to hold on to our Unitarian Universalist principles of truth, dignity, and interconnectedness because they are all connected to love. Justice happens as a result of loving one another. And so in the spirit of love, I'd like to end this reflection with this. Throughout my life, when someone learns that I'm Filipino, they will share with me all the bad words they know in Tagalog. And I know that throughout the service, you've been given a lot of Tagalog, but I'd really love to equip you with these two good and welcoming phrases to use with your Filipino siblings. So repeat after me. Kamusta ka? That means, how are you? Kamusta ka? And Mahal Kita. That means, I love you. Mahal Kita. And I hope that these words may serve to widen our circles and welcome those around us so our community and our wider faith tradition grow to be more equitable and inclusive. Amen and blessed be. And now we will move into our closing hymn, hymn number 1057, Go Lift It Up. You may sing, but please use a mask when you're singing. Our closing words today come, oh my goodness. Our closing words today come to us from Khalil Gibran. Love gives not but itself, and takes not but from itself. Love possesses not, nor would it be possessed. For love is sufficient unto love. When you love, you should not say, God is in my heart, but rather, I am in the heart of God. And think not you can direct the course of love, for love, if it finds you worthy, directs your course. Love has no other desire but to fulfill itself. But if you love, it must needs have desires. Let these be your desires. To melt and be like a running brook that sings its melody to the night. To know the pain of too much tenderness. To be wounded by your own understanding of love, and to bleed willingly and joyfully, to wake at dawn with a winged heart and give thanks for another day of loving. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.